My name is Amanda, and I'm from the Dribble Partnerships team, and I will be helping to kick things off today for today's webinar. My name is Amanda, and I'm from the Dribble Partnerships team, and I will be helping to kick things off today for today's webinar. So where is everyone logging in from? Feel free to introduce yourself and where you're logging in from into the chat. And we do have a few minutes before we get started. So we're going to be sharing a quick video reel from our presenters today at Balkan Brothers. Just to note too, there's going to be a quick poll after the video, so be sure to keep an eye out for that. So enjoy and hang tight. We'll be right back. Awesome. So we still have a few minutes before we get started, but I just want to again introduce myself. I'm Amanda and I work at Dribble here on our partnerships team. So please continue to interact in the chat, introduce yourselves and where you're logging in from while I introduce the speakers and get us started. So we've got a great webinar lined up for you today from the Balkan Brothers, walking us through key tips you need to craft portfolios and ace interviews. So there were thousands of registrants from the Dribble community over the past few weeks. There is a set number of attendees within this specific webinar room, but we also have an overflow room of attendees participating in the webinar over on YouTube Live. So just to note, this webinar will also be recorded and be sent to you after, just in case if you miss anything at all. But before we kick things off, the Dribble team and I want to thank you for taking the time to join us today. So we've been working with the Balkan Brothers for a few years now, and Vicente and Philip and their team will be walking us through about 30 to 40 minutes of tried and true tactics on how to perfect a portfolio and master interview techniques. So Vicente and Philip from Balkan Brothers will be speaking from their own experience, from years worth of lessons. And there has been a ton of excitement on this particular topic. So we're so pleased to have them join me on stage today. Hello.
Hey,
Hi, guys. Thanks for joining us.
thank you. Thank you.
Yes. So we'd love for you to get started. I'm going to stop my screen share and let you guys kick it off. I'm so excited to kind of see what you guys have to share with our community. I know that there's been some great feedback. So we'll let you do your thing and take it away.
Awesome. Thank you.
We wanted to start off first with a little poll, just to check in, the different, if you're like junior designers, midway designers, or more, senior designers, just to, know a little bit more about the crowd that we have today. And in the meantime, I'll share my screen.
And before we start, we'll just start the record. Just give us a moment.
Great.
Perfect. Awesome. So we can see the results of the poll. That's great. Yeah, it seems a lot of you are kind of newbies, juniors, mid-level. So I guess this webinar is going to be perfect for that purpose. So we'll adjust it towards that. But yeah, so we can kick it off. First of all, big thanks to the Dribble team. Thank you, Amanda and Olivia. We're extremely excited to be here, and we're finally doing something, with Dribble. We've been on the platform for over a decade, yeah, we're just fully excited, and we're extremely happy and thankful that so many of you joined the webinar and that you're interested in listening to this topic. So my name is Philip. I'm one of the co-founders and head of design at BB Agency, and my partner in crime, Vicente.
Hey, everyone. Yeah, as Philip said, I'm really excited to be here. I'm Vicente Reyes. I am the branding team lead at BB Agency. I'm speaking now from London, UK, though Chilean from origin. So I'm really excited to see people all over the world logging in. Today, well, as you well know, we're going to be talking about portfolios. As we've been on both sides of, applying to a job and sending our portfolios, as well as, reviewing tons of portfolios, I think we have like interesting tips and tricks for you. Of course, just a little bit of a heads up or warning, we're giving all of the tips that we have, but of course you don't need to follow all of them. It can get a little bit overwhelming, I guess. But at least to have, a good amount of the tips that we're gonna show you today, I think will be kind of like really good advice to ace your, your interviews and applying for a job. A new thing that might be different from, the tips and tricks that you see online on how to prepare a portfolio is that we're going to do the presentation today from the point of view of the hiring person, so our point of view, and show you kind of like the backstage of how it looks like to receive, 1,000 of portfolios, and what are the principles that we take in order to, evaluate if a candidate is good or not. This is not for the first time that we do this. We had a really nice live session on Instagram a couple of months ago for the agency's birthday. But we're really excited to, give it a new spin with, these visuals and this new point of view. So, Philip, you can start.
Sure. So, of course, as we know, applying for a job can be daunting, especially applying for a job at a design agency. And we live with that when we're trying to create our own case studies, so we know how excruciating it can get sometimes. And I mean, myself personally, I don't even have a portfolio, but don't be afraid. We'll try to make it easier with a few pieces of advice here and there, and just true and tested methods that we've encountered through our careers.
Yeah. So first of all, trying to nail the first basic steps. When you see a job offering, probably you'll read, a job description, what type of designer they're looking for, and then a few instructions of, where to send your portfolio, and probably an email subject description. As you can see from the point of view of like a hiring manager or who is receiving, all of these portfolios, they'll run into one morning into their inbox, and they're going to have from 30 to maybe 200 emails on their inbox with thousands of portfolios or recommendation letters and things like that, mixed with maybe the regular content of their inbox. So as you can see here, this is what maybe my inbox could look like in when we're looking for to hire someone. And you'll immediately see that, it got unrelated emails in between, and then people that maybe are not really following the instructions that we kind of like put on the hiring post. We are imagining that we, did, just put visual designer on the subject of your email. And, a lot of people are not following that kind of like basic steps. So then when we'll filter out, my emails by the keywords on the subject, those people will immediately be out of the pool of new candidates. In this case, I want to kind of highlight the email of this candidate, Maria Casas, who, follows the instruction, but then also adds, a very short sentence that already gives us a glimpse of her approach to design. She just writes, telling stories through branding and UI. That immediately kind of like catches our attention. So it's probably an email that I will be remembering later on.
Yeah, awesome. And beyond just, doing a beautiful subject, it seems that Maria did a great job at, doing a very short, sweet, and simple introduction of herself, which is great. And in addition to that, she is standing out because she sent over like a short, video to give us a glimpse into who she is as a person, and how she might act on a call. So in actuality, we did receive a few applicants that had like this specific approach, where they send over like a 1 minute or 2 minute video, just introducing themselves, just to see what kind of energy they produce through the screen. And we can say that it really works. It really helps out filtering out applicants. Usually sometimes we can get around, more than 200 applicants for a single design job role. And, I, as a head of design, I usually do the final approval. And from my perspective, this is a great way that you can actually stand out in the crowd and actually, capture our attention.
Also, one thing to note is that, usually when you send, your portfolio and then a link to your website and then maybe a CV or a cover letter through the email, you don't really know if the head of design or the team lead is actually going to receive all of those things on their inbox. Sometimes job applications land in the HR manager or someone who's maybe not a designer itself, and they might, resend or forward either via Slack or via image only one of the elements that you're sending. So a very good tip is, make sure that whether you send, a portfolio in PDF or a link to your website or a CV, make sure that all the basic information, is on all of the files that you're sending, your emails, your contact details, a description of yourself, and a glimpse of who you are as a designer. Here you can see that in the case of Maria, that we're going to kind of like follow her through her application process. She sends, these different documents, and we can already see, there is a right description of who she is as a designer. We can see that there is already a consistent style across, the different documents that she's sending over. So without even having met Maria yet, or even opening her portfolio, we already know that she might actually be a really good candidate. She's demonstrating engagement. We already seen a little video of her. We know her approach to design, and we already see that she has been kind of like carefully looking at all of the details on her job application. So this immediately puts her to the front. Now, as we all said, designing the portfolio is a very big task. Usually, perfectionism gets in the way of, finishing this humongous task. But we're going to give you, the tips to cover maybe the main two things that we're interested in. One is getting to know you as a designer, your approach as a designer, and maybe a little bit of your personality. And of course, knowing the quality of your work and how you approach your work. So expressing your individuality, through your design choices is a very kind of like big task. Maybe the cover of your portfolio is the best way where you can express this. As you can see, probably Maria went through a lot of like different iterations to see, what is the best way to represent her design style in the best way. Some of these covers look a little bit more techy and maybe, pixel perfect oriented. Some of them look a little bit more, avant-garde, or maybe a little bit more elegant or fashion oriented. These are all, different expressions of who Maria can be as a designer. As we saw maybe on the previous slides, she probably leaned into this more kind of like playful approach that combined with this, serif typeface also, brings another part of her personality into her play. But, expressing your individuality is really important, but you shouldn't let it kind of like overshadow your work. In this case, if Maria would bring, if she had brought those playful elements into the way she presents their work, maybe, this starts like overshadowing it and distract us from what's really important in the inner pages. So a good, decision from Maria was actually strip back the inner pages of her portfolio, keep it consistent with, nice typographic setting, a very clean layout, and just letting, the contents of her portfolio really stand out. In this case, using one of the colors of the brand she designed to fill the whole slide, and then going through like a very simple, clean layout to really let the images of her portfolio be in full display. And then we just see her typographic choices from the cover design, very neatly displayed throughout the pages. But it's really the project here that is shining.
Definitely. And then, when reviewing your projects, having a non-descriptive title or just having an image, it's not enough for us to understand your approach to design. We can know if your project is, for instance, a part of your previous agency work, or if you collaborate with a team or multiple people from the team, if it's a uni project, or if it's like something that you've it's self-commissioned or it's a conceptual work. Without knowing the proper context of the work, you can't really evaluate your professional skills, and will probably pass on your portfolio. So if we take a look at Maria's example, she did a couple of pretty good things. So she crafted a headline that describes the essence of the project pretty well. She highlighted the areas of the project she was involved in. She made it pretty clear that this was a project she worked on with her previous agency. She credited the rest of the team to make it clear that this was not all her work. And she added a more detailed description of how the process went and how she approached the project. The same approach can be, translated to any type of other work. It doesn't have to be like web work. It can be branding work. It can be UX work. It can be even, development work. Either under an agency or a conceptual project, giving us that context will show us your understanding of design. And, design is not just making beautiful things. It's about solving problems. It's about collaborating with others and following certain types of processes. So, in today's world, a beautiful design without context is just not enough. The same things can happen when selecting, priority or featured images for your work. We really want to know how far or how deep your project actually goes. So a common mistake we sometimes see in portfolios is just, designers can just showcase the flashiest parts of the project, and they can, take, for instance, like a hero section and showcase it in multiple mockup formats. But even though it is true seeing a website in a desktop and mobile gives us valuable context, we often prefer to see how much thought you put into each project. So if we take a look at Maria's example, she showed us the same website, but gave us way more information and actually showcased a bit more depth around the website. So she started off with a beautiful landing page, but then quickly she gave us a glimpse into multiple pages she worked on the website, again indicating the context and depth of her work. Additionally, she created a full page mock-up in a cozy room that gives a bit of information of the essence of the brand, something that maybe indicates something more lifestyle focused. And then additionally, below, she zoomed in on the mobile screens of her work. She showcased a little bit of the mobile UI. She showcased certain components from the system. She focused on the iconography. And through that, she actually produced quite a lot of context for us to understand the depth of her work.
Now, of course, not every project sometimes have the length of or the depth in terms of quantity, for example, like the web example that we saw on Maria's portfolio. Sometimes your involvement in one project is just the design of the logo. In that case, don't just show us the end result of the logo, but you can also add more depth in, for example, in this case, showing the logo in, different applications. In this case, how it will be used as an icon for the mobile version or as the starting of the, login process into the app, which again gives us more context. Maybe you can have the same logo now applied into swag or different, different materials just to see, get more information about the concept behind the brand through applying the logo in different platforms or formats. And then something that is really, really valuable, and I think that really can get, deep into your creative process is showing us your kind of like creativity or your inspiration process. In this case, now we know that, Maria was inspired by, the fluid movement of the human body during the exercise, symbolizing vitality, energy, and activity by overlaying the logo over an image of someone working out. And then on the right, she shows, all of the different iterations and sketches she did before getting into the final result. So as we can see, one single logo can be spread out into, many slides already by showing us, more context and the depth of the creative process.
The same goes for the research process. So, particularly for UX designers or product designer or even UI designers, knowing what kind of research was conducted to formulate the design solution is crucial for us. It gives solidity to your design, indicating you have designed this for a specific audience with a specific goal in mind. In Maria's example, for instance, she included screenshots of the competitive benchmark she did. She showcased, a little bit of behind the scenes around the stakeholder workshop she participated in to create the actual website. This indicates that she can as well design as conduct workshops, which means that, she potentially faces realistic problems that need to be solved. So beyond, whatever research was conducted, it should be always added to the case study. Consider things like user interviews, analytics audit, or behavior analysis that helps you define user personas or journey flows or information architecture for the website, and finally wireframes. So any type of research that was conducted, it gives a bit more context to the actual design solution. And then when you're looking to wrap up your story and the case study or part of the portfolio, every story does need a conclusive ending. But if you end up like with a screen from a footer or just like a simple screen from the project, it's not the best way to do it. Wrapping up the case study with certain results is probably a good way to consider. So in Maria's example, she was very smart in highlighting the outcomes of the projects. She summarized the deliverables and included some measurable results that were achieved after the project was launched. She even included a client testimonial, which attests to her creativity and commitment with the client, and additionally validates her work as well. And then, as an agency, just looking at everything that Maria, delivered and how she approached crafting her portfolio, we would say that we should definitely consider hiring Maria, and just based on her thinking and what she delivered so far.
Now, before Maria sent her portfolio, I'm pretty sure that she ran into a very common problem, which is, how many projects could she select? Because maybe, she just came out from university and she had, different courses on different areas of design, or maybe she works, maybe she lives on a small city that, the design industry is not very big. So you need to survive as, a motion designer, logo designer, UI designer, and be a little bit of a jack of all trades in order to survive in the industry. That's a very common problem, especially if you're maybe changing careers on your areas of design. But I think that a good tip for this would be, have a master document with, all of your design projects, and then just filter them out depending on the role that you are applying to. For example, if it's a more like a web-related role, you can maybe select your UI design and UX design projects together. Or if it's a more, brand-related role, you can, select your branding, logo, and illustration projects together. Or, if you have experience in animation as well, maybe motion design with illustration could be a good combo. One thing that you have to note is, even though being a multifaceted designer is a really good skill, many agencies have like very defined departments. For example, in the case of BB Agency, we do have a UI department, a UX department, a branding department, and a motion department. So when we are opening a role for you, a UI designer, we are really looking for someone who will be joining the UI design team. So filtering out your projects specifically for the role description would give you like a very good advantage over other candidates.
Awesome. So we can probably start with a one more poll. So the idea is to understand, from the audience, has anyone actually used AI in their career so far?
Just wait there for some more answers.
Hmm.
Okay, it seems that, yeah, we have mixed reviews. Okay, mainly about ChatGPT and copy, it seems, at least from the comments.
Oh.
Prompting every day. Nice.
Awesome. Well, I mean, the idea is that we'll show like 3 simple use cases where AI can, AI generated text can actually help you in your portfolio crafting process. So for instance, in Maria's example, we can see that she tried multiple voices, but you always have to be careful. In her example, in the first 2 examples, maybe she went too far or in an area that might have been too uncomfortable for her, or didn't fully align with her personality. And consider that English is Maria's second language, and sometimes it takes her a bit of time to find the right tone of voice in a professional context. So she'd rather use her time in perfecting her portfolio. So in that case, you can actually guide your ChatGPT and train it to create your actual personal tone of voice. As part of the webinar, we have also created a mini guide on how to use AI to define your tone of voice. It should be used to help you, to help your text seem a bit more personable, to seem more realistic and more aligned with your comfort level of English as well. And again, it's not fully ideal, and you have to continuously optimize the language. But once you define it, it can really help out and speed up the process of crafting additional copy for your portfolio. And we'll definitely share a link after the webinar, so you can check it out and you can actually use the prompts, and hopefully it helps you in crafting your own personal tone of voice through AI. So, you know, in Maria's example, once she set up her tone of voice and she was comfortable using that prompt, she could use ChatGPT, for instance, to craft, you know, certain project descriptions or project details by listing up the goals and process of the project and letting GPT, you know, thread the text together using her tone of voice and understanding the elements of the project and, you know, creating the story around the project itself. Or something fairly simple, what can happen is that we can finally say, you know, goodbye to lorem ipsum. You know, for instance, on her self-initiated project, something that's not commercial, she replaced lorem ipsum with AI-generated text to make her projects feel, again, a bit more realistic, a bit more, you know, aligned to what she's actually trying to design here. And again, giving more solidity and context to her work. But, you know, every new tool comes with a little bit of warning, I would say. So from our perspective, you know, don't use AI to generate design work, at least not yet, and not without proper guidance. So don't just, you know, put a prompt into AI and see the results and then deliver that. Always optimize a bit more. You know, be mindful of how you present yourself in written form and then in live form. Beautiful crafted cover letter doesn't do you good if you can't have the same vocabulary on your interview. And after a while, we can tell when text doesn't make sense or uses unrealistic vocabulary. And then additionally, as you start to use AI more and more, you'll start to notice its presence around the industry. So you'll start to notice more AI copy, you know, that's being used by others. So just be mindful of those things and try to optimize AI as much as you can.
Yep. So now, after reviewing, you know, Maria's portfolio, we thought that it was great. It was covering kind of like all of the basics on, you know, displaying context, giving us an idea of who she is as a designer, as well as provided kind of like really nice descriptions of herself and projects. So of course, we asked her to come and meet us on an interview, on an online interview. So we also got a few tips on how to, you know, prepare for the interview and ace it. First of all, again, we're going to start off with very basic steps. You know, make sure you have everything set up for the interview. You know, we've had many interviews where, you know, this is the first time that they're sharing their screen on Zoom, so they haven't given permission or access to their Mac computers yet, so they need to kind of like log out and log in again. This is a very tiny mistake. We will never say no to someone just based on this little mistake, but it will probably make you very nervous and uncomfortable. So this tip is more for you than for us. We've seen people getting into the Zoom room with a lot of confidence, then they start sharing the screen, they see that they need to kind of like log out and log in again, and then their confidence kind of like plummets and they get nervous, and you know, this kind of like disrupts the speech that they had on their head. And you not only need to be careful of, you know, how everything is set up on, you know, your computer, but also, of course, your environment. We are a mostly remote, half remote agency. So we have people, you know, working on their living rooms, some on their offices or rented spaces, some of their own bedrooms. That is absolutely fine. You know, I'm actually doing the call now from my living room. But make sure that you know that it is a presentable space. So if you have any kind of like hoarding problems, or if there's going to be a lot of like noise or distraction around you, you know, try to clear that up at least for the interview process. Of course, you know, now Maria is really ready to give a good impressions. We really don't know where she is, but you know, at least now we can just focus on her and her delivery of the interview. Now, probably the first questions that we're gonna ask Maria is, you know, please select 2 projects of your portfolio and walk us through them. Most common response, they get nervous. Oh, which projects? You know, please tell me which ones you want to evaluate. We really want you to kind of like select your own projects. And this comes with another challenge, same as, you know, selecting projects for your portfolio is, okay, which projects I'm going to select for your interview. again, this will be a combination of whatever it's more fit for the role that you're applying, but also what shows your talents in the best way. So, for example, there are many ways to approach this, but just to give you a handful of examples, you might have, in your portfolio, some work you did for a very big client, someone that, is maybe it's a brand that is known internationally, but you just did, a very short, I don't know, landing page for a sub page for that client. So maybe you could show that project just to show off that you have that client in your portfolio, but then you can pair it up with a more complex project that really shows, how deep your research goes or how deep your design execution goes. Maybe you can also do a combination between something that's very trendy, something that's very flashy, that's maybe like in your comfort zone. But then you can pair it up with a project that, was more challenging for you, that maybe you're not very satisfied with the outcomes, but, it presented a lot of professional challenges that, made you a better designer, sorry, in the long run. Or for example, you can pair, maybe a corporate, project that maybe aligns a little bit more with the role description, but maybe doesn't can be a little bit boring or doesn't really show off your talents. And then you can mix it up with, a self-initiated project, a personal project, or a project you did at university or in your studies, where, you really kind of like are expressing yourself as a designer, or you're really showing off, what really obsesses you as a designer. So we can have, a nice contrast between the two projects. But now, as with your portfolio, context is key. On the interview process, we really want to have like an engaging conversation when you're able to, jump through, what the process of the project was like, what skills did you use, maybe what tools did you learn to, make this project happen? What are the challenges that you were facing? What learnings did you get after, delivering this project? Who did you work with, or who did you collaborate it, or did you do it on your own? What's your point of view now of this project? Would you do it differently now? And maybe also personal feelings or emotions attached to the project. Do you feel proud of it? Was it, frustrating? How did you kind of, does it have a personal, meaning to you? All of this information really gives us like a very comprehensive 360 view of who you are as a designer. And finally, at the end of the meeting, don't just stare at us. Really, we're waiting for you to ask us the right questions. Some people just finish their presentation and this say blank, which it happens, but you can ask questions like, if I get hired, who would I have to report to? How is the team configured? What is the agency currently working on? What would my first month look like? Maybe you did a little bit of research on our website and you read one of our blog posts, so you can comment on it. You can ask how it was working with a particular kind of like client that you're interested in. Maybe you're curious about what is, the process that we have inside of the agency. All of these questions really reflect on a designer who is knows the agency that is where he's applying for a job, knows a little bit about how the design industry works, or is curious to know more about how this particular agency works, and that is engaged and professional in their approach to design. So obviously, after really nice portfolio and a really nice interview, of course, we were able to craft a nice email to Maria and offer her, the visual designer position at the agency. So with this, it's a perfect segue to, questions. I saw that a lot of people here made a few questions on the chat. I don't know if from yes, we've got here a nice selection of them. Philip, do you want to maybe start with some of them?
Sure. So we actually have them all in a Google Doc, so we can probably start scrolling through a few, right?
Yeah, there's
I'll-
a Q&A button at the bottom of where you have selection as well,
okay.
or the doc.
I'll check the doc since those are curated, but we'll try to go through as much as we can to offer as much insight as we can. So for designers like me who have never had a client professional work before, how would passion projects be described effectively with their portfolio? So, I mean, if you don't have commercial work, of course, you can have conceptual work or something that you've initiated yourself, but, don't just necessarily deliver the design work. Just consider, okay, if this project was real, for instance, how could it, operate in a real world? So what kind of research could I do for whom I'm potentially designing this project? For instance, like if you're designing a brand or a website for, I don't know, a real estate company, just consider who might be the audience that they're targeting with their brand and their website. Try to adjust, your design decisions based on that, on understanding who are they targeting, and then try to realistically showcase the project and its depth potentially, rather than just maybe mocking up few web screens. Try to create a couple of maybe mobile screens, web screens. Try to consider how a system might work, for instance. Just try to get into as much depth as you can, even if it's just conceptual work. Create it as realistically as you can.
Yeah, I think that to add on that, one of my first kind of like realizations when I was starting my career as a designer was the moment that I started working for an agency and I started, working with more kind of like professional mockups. I started realizing that a lot of the agency work that you see online is actually mockups, most of them. Um, so sometimes you don't really need to have like the actual client experience to be able to flesh out a professional work. Of course, you won't have, the client interaction and the back and forth and what you show will just be, the results of your own creativity. But I think you do have the resources online to kind of like be able to present a depth of work that is kind of like similar to an industry standard. And then again, if you haven't had the professional experience, or maybe you're just out of uni, of course, you're going to be applying for either a junior position or an intern position. So we won't be expecting, a lot of like client related work. So showing university projects or showing personal projects is absolutely fine. But again, the context is really what will make you stand out from other designers. So we really want to see your processes, what you think, how you think as a designer. So put a lot of emphasis on that.
Definitely. Let's jump into the next one. Okay. So I agree with the approach showing project for visual and UI. What about UX or service? In some projects, the requirements were really tough, and sometimes they are still more difficult to explain to a third person. Avoiding writing too much text or too much slides. Show the research, it's the best way. I mean, you can even slightly embellish the research from a design perspective. Like you don't have to just take a screenshot of all the post-its in FigJam. Like you can adjust them, you can change the colors, so it still, you can play with the design solution even if you're just focusing on the research itself. And specifically, again, context, if it's research, okay, what was the result of the research? What was the synthesis? How did you implement that research? Again, you can always play with the context. It doesn't always have to be about the beauty of the design solution.
Yeah, exactly. And particularly in UX or service, synthesis is a skill set from the UX designer. So we're expecting you to be able, to at least synthesize a little bit of that information so that it doesn't end like a super extensive work, but you could still just show visually maybe the depth or the extent of the work. Or you could summarize it as well through, similar to Maria's end slides, you ended up with, I don't know, 200 pages of documentation or results of, in this or these areas. So there are ways that you can, synthesize the information without having to explain, everything.
So, unfortunately, I don't have the names of who is asking questions, so apologies for that, but I'm just going through the questions. I have a hard time showing results. Do you have any tips? So, I mean, the result can be many things, like, the outcome of the project. The result of the project can be its duration, if you manage to do it in a shorter time frame. The result can be if you look at analytics, for instance, and that was, for instance, the goal of a project, that you potentially increase the conversion rate. Again, this is simplifying a very complex statement, but you can showcase those type of things, and we have it, for instance, on our website, a lot of result-based data that we try to promote. For instance, in some cases, we showcase, the funding of the company. Sometimes we showcase how much views did a certain solution get on social networks, for instance, just to indicate the engagement that we got from the work itself. So, the results that don't always have to be very complex or hard to, find. So it can be something that's fairly simple that, again, validates the work you've been creating.
Yeah. I read here on the chat a question that I think that could be related as well, or it's a similar, or it's a relatable problem. Someone here writes, right, if the project wasn't shipped or the development wasn't good and doesn't really follow the design. So this is kind of like a project where actually you couldn't get the results because the people who were responsible to really finishing the project didn't finish it the right way. This is a very common problem to happen. It even happens to us as an agency where we try to do the full circle and then with the development inside as well, and sometimes that is carried on by the client instead of the agency. In that case, feel free to just show your designs. What we really want to know is like your way of thinking, and then in the interview or even in the portfolio description, maybe describe what happened that the project wasn't delivered in the way that you were thinking. Maybe you can make a comparison. This is what I designed and this is what I delivered. This is what I would have done differently in order to make it better. All of those context of the project will make us understand that, okay, you're worried about the final end result or the final design, even if you didn't get to actually get to them.
Yeah, definitely. Another one. Okay, what do you do if the projects you worked on are not attractive enough? Dribble is packed with these health, restaurant, and colorful pretty solutions, but some of us work on data-heavy projects which are hard to make look good. Oh yeah, that's a tricky one. Well, there are a few routes. You can maybe, if it's like a very data dense, UI, maybe you can focus on certain details that, can actually zoom us in onto a certain solution that might look potentially visually good. Like if you're talking about a product design, maybe you can zoom in on a specific chart. Maybe you can zoom in on a specific, semi-complex UI element, like a navigational element, and how you configure that to potentially improve the user experience of the product. Or a different route could be, take the work that was completed, and then if you really want to promote it beyond just the work, how it looks, you can slightly embellish it here and there, like maybe, introduce another color pop, maybe switch the colors from the system to make it a bit more interesting, introduce another element or like an additional chart, again, to balance out the visuals in what you're showcasing. So, it doesn't always have to be fully realistic. It depends what you want to do with the work. If you're showcasing it for an agency, yeah, definitely show us the real work. But if you're trying to promote yourself online, you can embellish here and there. You don't have to worry about it that much.
Yeah, definitely. I agree that if it's either because the client that you've been able to get, sometimes it's true, clients do ruin sometimes the project, or they want to go for a route that really goes against your view as a designer. Embellishing it in your portfolio, I don't see a problem with that. Again, giving the context and explaining maybe why you did that will be honest about it. I think that's perfectly fine. And then it's what I said earlier about the selection of your portfolio. Maybe you have some personal projects that really display your quality of a designer. So you can use those projects to give an idea of what your style is or your aesthetics are, and then maybe use the more maybe less attractive, but more comprehensive or complex, client projects to show that other side of being a designer, which is, dealing with clients, working with maybe different teams or solving problems through design. So you have to kind of like create a balance there.
Awesome. On to the next one. Oh, this one is for me, it seems. Hi, Philip. As a fellow Croat, I'm inspired by your journey in the design world. Thanks. Thank you for that. What's the best piece of advice you ever received about creativity or design that you can share with aspiring designers? Ooh. I don't know. Like, that's a difficult one. Well, I can tell you just one piece of advice. It's not related to creativity, but it's a pretty good advice I got a few years back. And it goes like, you can receive, the best advice in the world, but if you're not ready to listen to it, it won't click. So, but for design specifically, I think it's part of what we're showcasing here. And it took me a while in my career. It took me a few years to get to it. But it's actually understanding the context. Like, design is just one aspect of the work we're creating, The beauty of design and visual mastery is just a certain percentage of the work that we can actually deliver, and everything else is equally important. So, just consider that when, even if you're unsure about your design skill set and you're unsure about your visual mastery, it doesn't have to mean anything for you as a designer. Maybe you have other skill sets or soft skills that you're kind of, better at. So don't just necessarily worry about the design mastery itself. That would be my advice, at least. But Vicente, if you have pretty cool advice.
I don't know if like an enlightening advice or anything like that. I don't know. I think there are many learnings on your career as a designer. I would say that, yeah, like the visual aspect, it is an important part. But then the more I work as a designer, the more I value other parts of it, client communication, engaging with people, engaging with the problems. I think sometimes designers obsess with being a designer and making that, their whole identity. So having other parts as well contribute to your work, I think it's very valuable and very important, and can make you kind of like stand out in the industry as well.
Awesome. We've got 8 more minutes, but let's jump into a few more questions. Regarding filtering your projects, if your portfolio is online on a website, would it suffice to have a filter function? I'm applying to different roles all the time, so I wouldn't want to leave half of my projects off only to add them back the next day. Maybe Vicente.
Yeah. I mean, if you have a filter option on your web portfolio, that's that's great. Maybe when you send your application email, send a link with that filter option on. So your name.com/UI, for example, if that's the way that you're going to filter all of the UI projects. But I'm pretty sure that, if you have a very varied portfolio online, the person who is looking at your portfolio will look at the other work as well, and that's going to be fine. Maybe this can be related to the some of the other questions that I've seen in the chat of whether we prefer a PDF, a website, or maybe like a Figma file. I think this can be like a very personal opinion, so take it with a grain of salt. I personally like PDFs because they give me like a very kind of like edited, like tailored version of who you are as a designer. I'm happy with websites as well, like if they're well designed, because the thing is that when you share sometimes like Behance, or for example, the problem that I have with Behance as a portfolio kind of like tool, is that it gives all of your projects the same priority. So you can have a project that is, a 20 pages web portfolio, website with, UX research and with, a lot of like iterations and concept and branding, and you submit that. And then you also have, three icons that you did for a project, and they're sitting at the same kind of like hierarchy within your Behance portfolio. So what I like about the PDF is that you can kind of like edit that out and really kind of show hierarchy between your projects, or create a narrative between the order that you see the projects. When you have like just an online platform, sometimes it gets a little bit tricky, because I really don't know what's the first project that I'm going to click. And maybe I can see there are things that really don't make a better case for you. But then I think any tool is okay, as long as there is some sort of like consistency. I've had the problems maybe with a few candidates that have a PDF that say one thing, and then they send me to a Behance that have other projects, and then to a Dribble that have other projects, and then for a website that have other projects. So then I don't know, what is the projects that they really want me to look at, or what's the most recent, or what's really the most valuable from their end. So make sure that at least for the application, it's a little bit more tailored to the job description.
Awesome. So we have time for one more question while we wrap things up. If there's a favorite of yours, I know that there was dozens and dozens submitted in the Q&A as well as the chat, so you have a ton to pick from. But if there's anything else that you want to answer or kind of wrap up before we polish this up for today.
Yeah, we can pick one more. Let me just see which was the most upvoted, and so we can, get to that one. Okay, so how can recent graduates with limited projects and experience effectively showcase their skills in their portfolios? Is it advisable to provide more detailed explanations of projects that they do have, particularly if these projects span various fields such as industrial design, graphic design, illustration, and more? I think we kind of also semi-answered this a little bit, but feel free to showcase just the work you did. It doesn't have to always be fully commercial. It can be university work. And again, if you have like multiple skill set and you're operating in multiple industries, why not showcase all of that a little bit? A little bit of graphic design, a little bit of illustration work. It's even better if you did all of that as part of one project, for instance. Again, that showcases a lot of depth. So depth is more than welcome, I would say.
Yeah, particularly for people that are just starting out, having a lot of variety in the portfolio is absolutely fine. More senior positions, maybe you are looking for someone who's a little bit more specialized, but it could also not be the case. And at least when I studied design, not graphic design. So I did a little bit of fashion design, a little bit of industrial design, a little bit of graphic design. And in the end, all of areas of design follow very similar principles. In all, you have to do research. In all, you have to maybe get a little bit of context of your users. In all of them, you need to sketch, create mood boards, or create iterations. In all of them, you have to create a final product. And in all of them, you'll have final results. So really, it doesn't matter which area of design you're working on. The kind of like the process and principles are pretty much the same. So showing us that is really the most kind of like valuable part, independent on if it's graphic, industrial, UX, or UI.
Awesome. Thanks so much. So first off, I want to thank you both for participating today. There's been so much amazing information, and obviously a big congratulations to Maria, who got hired. But it's honestly so wonderful for you to take time to support the community and further their careers and further just create great conversations for all our Dribble community members. So just a quick reminder to everyone, this was recorded. So we're going to be sending the recording out to all the registrants, those who weren't able to be in the Zoom or missed the timing. So you can have this to replay. We can also set this up on YouTube for future viewings as well. An email is going to be sent out this afternoon or an hour from now, wherever you are, with also another additional resource from the team, the Balkan Brothers team as well. So they're going to be sharing a blog post specifically about AI and utilizing it to kind of drill down on that conversation a little further. So check out that as well. But again, thanks so much for participating. We really look forward to having you guys back, as well as seeing everyone else in the Dribble community in the next webinar. Thanks so much, guys, for coming.
Thank you all so much. It's a lovely session.